All right. So let's do our fabled intro. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? I don't know why this guy is laughing.
That's your intro. There you go.
There you go. Okay. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is Steve from the ABG. I'm here with the co-host with the most, Sturmeister, and of course, special guest of the podcast, Andito Gamer. We are the 8-bit generation, and you are
We got
listening.
the hats.
See, we're official. You see, ABG right there.
We got the hats.
And you are listening to the 8BG cast. If you like this video and other videos on our channel, please give us a thumbs up, as Indito showed, and subscribe, comment, like, and share. We love it. We love to talk about games and everything else. Um, so real quick, today we're going to talk about the Nintendo Switch 2, going to be released on June 5th. And we're just kind of gonna go over our final thoughts about the system, the projection of success, what we anticipate, what we like, what we don't like, and just kind of see if it's let's give our 2 cents on it. So, in detail, any final thoughts on the Switch 2 before it releases?
For me, the game looks good, right? It looks like a good console, but for me, I won't be buying it. I won't be buying it.
Why is that?
Too expensive. Too
Hmm.
expensive. That's too much money. Too much money for a Nintendo Switch. Um, like it's like 450 bucks, and depends what state the tax is. Like probably gonna spend like close to 470. I mean,
Nah, you're gonna be spending close to 500.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
so
500. It's a lot of money for a Nintendo game. That's like supposed to be a family game, right? Where people get this
He's
game
on to
to, yeah.
something.
mhm.
So, well, why are you, what you trying to compete? You're not PlayStation. I
But
mean,
but to play devil's advocate, I think Nintendo, from what I read, because Sterling, you had some of your video probably before,
Did you
and I
watch
know
it?
I watched some of it. I didn't get a chance to see all of it,
Okay.
but it did mention the sales of the Switch is almost surpassing the PS5. So right now, that puts Nintendo in a very peculiar position, where they can, make moves, or they're pretty much the number one console right now.
Here's the
Um,
thing.
mhm.
With this, when
Well,
you say the sales may they even if they didn't reach the PS5, they've been more profitable than
yes.
Sony has for reasons. I don't know if you watched the whole video, but they talked
Well,
about
the games were $60, right?
well,
Because
not even just that the fact that they kept the games, but the idea is because the Switch sells is cheaper to make, so
mhm,
they still sell them and they make profit. Like
just on a
Sony has
console.
a huge margin. Even Sony selling the PS5 at their price, they're still selling at a loss. Switches don't sell at loss. Like you said, also the other things they kept the games the same prices, but also they've incorporated all these other ways of making money
Online.
online. They
Hmm.
didn't charge for online until this generation,
Hmm.
and that's something a lot of gamers will do. And then also the other thing is the mobile games actually have been printing fucking money for Nintendo too.
Surprisingly, right?
Um,
All that
they
that
said
marriage.
Fire Emblem Heroes, which is the Fire Emblem mobile game,
Mhm.
has made more money than all of the Fire Emblem games combined in
Damn,
sales.
oh my god,
that's
that
insane.
is insane. I mean,
That's
a
and
lot of
I'm
more, a lot
sad to
more
say
people.
I put some money into that.
All right, so you're the reason. You're the culprit.
I love Fire Emblem, man, and I played like Fire Emblem Heroes been out for like 8 years at this point,
Mhm.
so I played it for like the first 3 years, and then I realized like they're never gonna stop. They're just gonna keep releasing new
Mhm.
characters. Like the descriptions of moves that these characters can do, it's like a book now. They used to
Mhm.
be like, oh, this raises HP by 10 and this adds 2 to attack. Now it's if this character's next to this with 25% here, this does this, but plus this might. I'm not even kidding. I
No, no,
look
I
at it and
believe.
I'm
I
like,
Yeah.
how are you supposed to even keep up with this? But the
Mhm.
diehards, all you need to do is find 10 whales that will spend $10,000 a month to make sure they get their characters plus
But
10 maxed out with
but
summons.
I find it so interesting that like you said that the game is like very complex. There's a lot of strategy to the game,
I
and then
mean, and yeah, if you're the diehard
yeah, but then
part,
the mobile game just sold gangbusters compared to the entire series when it was released on other consoles. I just find that very fascinating.
Well, it's these damn transactions. You got to get to release these new characters, which are so much. The content gets harder and harder, so you need these newer characters. And how do you get them? From summons. And yeah, you get a lot of free stones, but after a while, with if the chance of pulling a character you want is 3%, you're gonna have to pay some money to summon more, and then you get the character, and then you feel like you have all the power to beat all the new content. It's an addicting cycle.
So let me ask you guys a question. So you mentioned the Switch 2 price, and you mentioned being that it's a family console, and Dito that that's kind of the wrong way of doing it. Do you guys feel that the prices that Nintendo is setting is going to set them up for failure?
Yes. And
yes.
I would argue differently when we did our first Switch 2 thing. I was kind of like, man, I just can't wait to have a Switch 2 because it's just a Switch but better and stuff. But now, after watching that video I sent you, I've changed my whole perspective. I'm not saying the Switch 2 will fail, but they are falling into they're not the same Nintendo that we used to know. One thing you can even say is first party games. They have not released a lot of original first party Switch games, if you think about it. Besides, there's been a lot of remasters and stuff that was taken over from the Wii U.
Well, granted, for whatever Super Princess Peach. What about that?
I'm not saying they didn't release any, but they counted the numbers compared to this generation. They were like, and I get it, we're starting the Switch 2 with a Mario Kart, but they released Mario Kart 8 with some DLC and called it a day. The DLC, by the way, wasn't necessarily expensive in terms of it was a lot of new tracks, but a lot of them were taken from the cell phone game, and they only worked in one or two new tracks here or there. So it wasn't the craziest DLC, but it was still built on a 10-year-old game.
I'll say the Donkey Kong game looks good. I'll say that, right? I want to play that. I'll say
that. The Switch 2, this I want to get it eventually down the line. Yeah, I will pay the whatever it costs. I'm not gonna get it at launch because I'm gonna wait till scalping and all this shit go away because I know it's gonna be crazy, and I don't want to deal with that.
It isn't currently the Switch 2. I haven't seen the figures. I don't recall the figures, but from what I saw or I glanced at. Right now, it's projected to sell more than the Switch did on its launch day.
Well, let me hold that though. The only way it can do that, right, and it will. But this is the thing about all Nintendo consoles: they will always the Wii U sold out when it first launched. All the diehards are gonna go and get all the first ones. That's never gonna change. That happened even with the Wii U. After that initial bubble burst, that's when we'll see. Is grandma willing to pick up a $500 console for Timmy? You know what I'm saying?
But so you don't think the price is fair? Because I'm thinking, when the last time the Switch 2,
it's not about it being fair.
Well, people are gonna pay. People are gonna pay for it anyway.
When the Switch came out, right? The Switch came out to what, 2017, right? And then at the time, what was it going for? 250, 300? Right,
300.
So from that time, with the economy and everything like that, you still don't think around 400 something is fair?
No, because the thing about it is you got to always look, and then they used. This is why I think that video is really good. The idea, Nintendo success has always come on them being the cheaper option.
And technically, they still are, right? Compared to Xbox 3.
How much cheaper? How much cheaper are we talking?
Xbox.
They're usually
Xbox Series X is going for 500 something now.
No, he said it was what, 379.
379.
That's S. What about the X? Xbox Series X.
But there's still cheaper options. But we're not talking about the premium option. Let's take the cheapest option against the other cheapest option, right? So it's not the cheapest anymore. I'm not saying no one's gonna buy an Xbox Series S anyway, but it's not the cheapest option. There's $450. Okay, this is a different range of price. What Nintendo, if they hit the Switch 2 at the same $299, I would have tried to get one on launch or something. The $450.
I don't think $299 carries the same weight. It has to go more than that. I mean, it's not gonna.
No. That's what I'm saying. Maybe it does, but that's the issue because now we're literally. Nintendo has every time a Nintendo system has iterated with stronger and power, they've always sold less and less. It's only when they started coming out when they realized, okay, yes, Super Nintendo was better graphically than Nintendo. Didn't sell as well because also it wasn't. People say no, Nintendo when it came out was
remember, yeah, the Sega Genesis and everything.
yeah, but they realized competition does all this thing. But then they started to really realize like Nintendo 64 didn't sell as well. GameCube
competition
didn't sell as well.
Because
but what happened is Nintendo realized we're not going to win just adding more graphics. Right, that's why the Wii came out and did what it did.
There's caveats to that, right? Because for example, the N64, just to reiterate, they use cartridges. So because of the cartridge base, we know cartridges cost a lot more money. They spend a lot more money making games compared to the PlayStation, where CDs were like almost nothing.
But what is that? What's that have to do with the price of the N64 when it came out was $200?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is
we're talking about console sales. They didn't sell.
The cartridges also affect the sales as well, and how
but
much
but you got to buy the consoles. Like,
of course,
if they're not, it's not like we're talking Super Nintendo was still successful. N64 was not successful.
Of course, because you were comparing because it competed against the PlayStation, which again.
But I'm saying it's the philosophy that their philosophy, Nintendo's philosophy doesn't work. It's not about necessarily just, they're competing. They're always in this field, even when they say we're not competing, like the Wii U, the Wii is not competing with the other consoles. You're still there. But when Nintendo hits its success, it's when they say, I forgot the concept that they said something like,
you mentioned it was
taking the tech, they've done better taking older technology and looking at it in a different way. Mm-hmm. But whenever they take the technology that they have and try to push it, let's add more and more to this. Like, if you check out, just look at how they introduced the Switch and look at the Switch 2. The Switch 2 looks like it's a PC conference. We're talking frames. We're talking this. They're not talking anything unique about the Switch. Yeah. It's just it just does more power. That is where now. This is not to say the Switch is so successful that maybe it don't matter, but I think like him even saying the price is something like Nintendo. Like, you're gonna get the hardcores. It's gonna the first year you're gonna see that, but like I said, the reason the Wii was so successful is because it was everybody else buying it outside of the hardcore, right? The Switch is successful is because everybody outside of the hardcore is buying.
Here's the difference between the Wii and the Switch, right? Because everyone who bought a Switch, everyone went crazy for the Switch. Grandma, grandpa, everyone's playing the Switch. You can play Switch anywhere. I'm sorry, it's not Switch. Excuse me, the Wii. Back in 2006, the Wii, you played the Wii anywhere, right? Everyone played the Wii. But then what happened gradually as time went on? People stopped playing the Wii.
Yeah, right? But the Wii, you cannot call the Wii. If let's say it didn't last long.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not denying the success of the Wii.
It's a business success.
Whether or not it's a success, but the Switch is different because the Switch has prolonged success, and it continued, adding other streams of revenues for Nintendo. Whereas the Wii, even though it sold like gangbusters, and of course it's a success in its own historic success, it became a paperweight because a lot of people didn't play the Wii past a certain amount of
games. That's debatable. We can't tell because they still use the Wii at my job, because of what it is. It's whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And also, I want to iterate to it because Nintendo 2, even though it wasn't that big of a deal at the time, remember Nintendo 64 still introduced the first analog stick, so they were still innovating, even though they were going graphically, because technically back then that's what video games could do back then, is do graphical upgrades. There was no opportunity to really do anything different. In fact, the only different system I remember was really, games that did this creatively was the Game Boy, because it still kept its processor, its specs right up until like the Game Boy Color, and also the Sega Pico, which is kind of like a different outlier. For the most part, all game systems, whenever they had to upgrade something, it always had to be graphical fidelity, because that was pretty much what they could do back in the day.
But every time Nintendo's done that, they've had less success. That's all I'm saying. Now, but here's the other thing too about the Switch's prolonged success. One of the reasons the Switch has a prolonged success, and it took a long time, I think, for the Switch 2 to norm. Nintendo usually is like every 5 to 6 years, and this is a little longer. It's because of COVID. That break,
I agree.
pushed game sales through the roof for everybody,
No, I
right?
agree.
Especially and then like people with the Switch and you can carry it everywhere and the way things were going, I think that was a perfect thing. People probably really bought the shit like crazy
It
during
was
that
sold
time. I
out
think that's
at some
part of
point
the
during the
prolonged
pandemic. You
success.
couldn't even find a Switch.
Yeah,
Right.
You couldn't find a Switch or Animal Crossing.
During the and so I think that was part of the issue of the long-term success. I think any video game at the time would have been a good time to put anything out because all people could do at that time was stay home and play games. um but like one of the things that they're saying too, that like Nintendo, uh where they're saying kind of like Nintendo's lost its way is in terms of like uh it's literally it's not necessarily the Wii U problem, but it's kind of in the same boat in terms of put like it's the Wii could have been called the Wii 2. Let's say the Wii U
Yeah.
was called the Wii 2. It probably would have still done as bad. I don't know. I think the Switch 2 is in a better position to do better just because of backwards compatibility, all the other stuff. But it's that price. It's like that price really is a thing that you have to think like you already as a gamer are used to spending this kind of money. Like this, that I think the reason these things are so successful is not because of that. It's like it's because you got to get the regular person to really say I'm gonna do that. $300, especially this day, is much easier to do with inflation and all that. But $450 to $500
yeah.
is
It's pretty steep. I mean, what I'm gonna say is like, to me, it didn't make sense for me to upgrade to a Switch 2 when my Nintendo Switch does the same thing, right? It does the same thing. The Joy-Con detached, the controller is the same. I mean,
Yeah.
unless you decide to trade your Switch to upgrade to Switch 2, shit, yeah, by all means, do that. But to me, like, I have the OLED. It was perfectly fine. Like, why would I go and upgrade, and spend like close to $500 to buy a system plus with no game? Like,
we didn't
I
talk
don't.
about the games being
Yeah,
$80 yet
yeah,
either.
yeah. The games are $80. My thing is like, I don't know. Like at first, I was excited for the Switch, right? But when the price came out, and I'm like, I don't know, man, because I was reading the comments. A lot of people were like, "Nah, I think I'm good. I don't think I'm gonna spend $500 on a Nintendo game because this is like I said, it's a family console where people come together. The kids are playing it. That's their selling
And
point
the
right there.
affordability of that is gone.
Yeah, yeah. So you want that, but if you're coming out like they said, like in order for you to buy the whole thing, right? The case, controllers, and everything, it's like close to 1,200 bucks. Like,
Yeah, you throwing 2 or 3 games? Come on.
yeah,
Now, and that's the
So,
other thing, Steve. Like
I
he's
just want.
right when he's. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead,
So
Steve.
here's what I want to say, right? So my opinion is that I do feel Switch 2 is going to be, do gangbusters, as we already mentioned, right?
At
Whether it be
launch.
prolonged, whether at launch, definitely, whether it be prolonged is, yet to be seen. I still think the price is fair, for what, you're getting and for the time that's being released, right? Um, Other factors that we're going to see is also the game prices. Again, I'm not, I'll say this. The Wii was successful partly due to having Wii Sports bundled with it, because I think that was an instant way to see how the Wii worked. Had the Wii been by itself with no games, I don't think it would have been that successful. And thanks to Reggie
There's proof to
Fils-Aimé,
that. In Japan, it didn't launch with the Wii Sports, and it sold better in the American. In terms of percent, it sold
exactly,
better. Yeah,
because
launch games.
show me the money. That's what people want to see. How does this work? And I know it. I actually, speaking of books we spoke about before, I actually read Reggie Fils-Aimé biography, and where he talked about fighting to get Wii Sports into
Yeah,
the Wii. So long story short, we know that we became sort of like gangbusters and became one of the most profitable consoles. Switch 2, I feel like they're making a huge mistake by not giving you a free game for that price point, right? So, for example, there's a game called Welcome Switch Tour. I don't, I haven't seen much of the game, but to me, when I look at the game or what I've seen of the game so far,
Mhm.
I'm like, why don't you just release it as a free game? Give some, give the new owner
Here's
some incentive to play it. Like
here's
if it's showing off the the way the Switch 2 works, some of the stuff that you can do with the new technology. Why not do it for free? And I
here's
know,
why.
I know. Well, I know what you're gonna say because Nintendo doesn't
No, you
like
don't.
doing things. All right, go ahead.
Here's why. Because
Mhm.
Satoru Iwata is dead.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Okay,
that's yeah, exactly.
you understand. The failures when he took over and stuff. There's a lot of failures. He took a
Hmm.
lot of pay cuts because not even because of the money. He just wanted to represent. Like I failed. This is the
Hmm.
punishment.
Yeah, that's his
I'm
point.
gonna
Yeah.
work harder.
Hmm.
But here's the thing that he started the Switch. It was part of his thing before he died, obviously, but whatever.
Hmm.
But he was the one that was working on it. He said, "This is what Nintendo needs to do," because
Hmm.
yada yada yada. And he created the Nintendo Direct. Right? It was him. He's a gamer. He also was.
He made
He
games
had
as
a.
well.
He saw what would work. He knew what would work. The new president of Nintendo,
Hmm.
who is he?
You're not talking about for America, right?
No, I'm
Bowser,
talking about Japan.
Japan. I don't recall his
I don't
name.
know
I
either.
know.
Does he show up in Nintendo Directs? No. All he
Hmm.
shows up to is shareholder meetings,
Yeah.
and they're happy because he's making all this money.
Hmm.
That's the era of. That's what I'm saying. This is the era of Nintendo we are in now. We are
Hmm.
not in this. So,
The Resident
so
Pizza
Iwata
Day and
left us
Wada, yeah.
a great starting point, but now who took over is not a person that is probably caring about innovation and
Yeah.
things that the best of Nintendo brings
Hmm.
out. That the Switch the Switch is a great console
I know.
that was born out of a
Mhm.
need of what Nintendo does best, the Game Boy. The Nintendo does best when they're like when they need to be innovative.
But here's the thing, right? Nintendo with the success of the Switch, I think Nintendo's also kind of in a bind as well, because if they do anything radically different, I think they're afraid of alienating the installed base that they currently have with the Switch 2, right? Because you do something wacky or different, or something that's like completely, no matter how innovative it is, I feel like you're gonna lose a core audience there. So I feel like to continue keeping
I'm
that
not. Yeah, I get it. They can't make
satisfied. And
another
of
Virtual
course,
Boy.
it doesn't mean that they won't do anything other, other creative endeavors as well. But I think they definitely need to still, bring over that Switch audience and keep them engaged with their current system.
But
I
this
mean,
I
is
don't,
I'm looking at
but
the Switch too, and I'm
but
not excited about it.
but
It's
but here's
like
the thing, right?
I don't see the wow factor.
Nintendo has even on the Switch, Nintendo has tried other things, right? Remember Project Labo with the wood and everything like that. That didn't really do anything. It was creative, right? You use the
yeah,
Switch.
but every system they have, they're full of all. Rob the Robot was NES.
Yeah,
Like I get
but
it.
they're always gonna do something. So it doesn't mean that the Switch 2 won't have it. Won't have that. We don't even know what they're gonna
But
create yet with the Switch 2.
but that doesn't matter if the damn thing is 500, 450, or 500 at launch to me.
Hmm.
It's like when you can be creative and wacky and weird when you can sell a million consoles because people love it. But
Hmm.
now you're selling us the same console, just stronger. Literally, there's no other. There's like when he said when Andito's talking about I look like that. That's the thing that most people like you're not really you're really looking at it from the gamer's perspective, and I get that.
Hmm.
Like you put the Switch and the Switch 2 next to it, and you ask people that don't know games about it, they're not going to know the difference because they
Hmm.
both look. And that's the thing. That's to me the long term issue of it.
They'll eventually
You're
know.
like, oh, they got to do something. I'm the gamer. I love the Switch, and I need
But
I
I'm
need
also thinking from
something
business
similar.
perspective. I'm thinking from business perspective too, because again, there's a built-in audience that's still there.
But take that. Look at history with the built-in audience, Nintendo to Super Nintendo. The built-in audience of building a better and stronger console
But
did
Rob,
worse and worse each time.
in a way,
It
you're
never
also
worked
comparing
better for them.
apples to oranges because remember you're talking
No,
about
it's
different
not.
times. Yeah, because you're talking about a different time
No,
period
but it's the
when
same
things were different.
idea.
Because
They
now
did it twice.
look at game development. Game development is completely different than it was back in the day. It's harder to make
What
these
is
AAA
yeah,
games.
but the whole idea of Nintendo was always the cheaper option, and
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
so you're like Dave. Anytime to me, they, I just feel like the Wii and the Switch represent where Nintendo finds their real success.
because it
They are
was
not successful
yeah,
doing what you think. Like
yeah.
going literally what you're talking about is them going N64 to GameCube, or they're going Wii to Wii U. This is like the Wii. I get it. The Wii U is different, but the idea is we're gonna make powerful more whatever to me, and I just feel like
It's too expensive. It's too
I
it
don't know.
is too.
I see that as
Listen,
fair because let me look up a PS5
what
right now.
because I listen like why would I buy a Nintendo Switch for 450 when I can get an Xbox, right? Like Sterling was saying, like I said before, this is a family console, and where you want to win at, it's like you don't want, like you said, grandma spending $500 on a system.
and
That's not even with a game. That's
But
not
remember
even
and
with
too,
you
a
got
this
to
game.
think about
it's
it.
a system that you can play at home. It's a 4K
You
system you
give
can
it.
play at home and you can take it on the go.
I would be more
I get it,
likely to
but
give my kid maybe the Switch or the Switch Lite or whatever they had
And
because
that's
of
probably why they're still going to be sold. That's the thing with the Switch. I think
the
Nintendo
Switch
should have.
2 is
Remember,
a $500 console that you're
they're
taking
thinking
to the
long
go.
term because if you have kids, they can still go play the Switch and the Switch Lite, right? Because those
But they're
consoles are
not.
not
But
going
you're
anywhere.
not making sales on that.
I mean, you're not making sales on that, but eventually you will because they're gonna eventually want to get the other
They're
system.
gonna. So you're gonna drop the 500. It's the Switch
Mhm.
Lite. Remember, is way cheaper.
It's like
These
129, right?
150 to 200. It's
hmm
you're much more reasonable. Unless they
hmm
make a Switch 2 Lite. But even it's still the idea to me is you're talking. And I don't know if they'll do the Switch 2 Lite because of the specs and stuff. Like you like the specs. It's a lot harder to sell that for cheaper. That to me is like it's a lot harder to say.
hmm
Like you say, this is 500. Let's say 450, but at the end of the day, it's going to be 500 plus. That's a
hmm
lot
that's without a
to
game.
get your
hmm
kid. It's a lot to ask for. It's a
Yeah,
lot more than a
yeah,
$200 or $300 Switch. It's a
hmm
lot more.
yeah.
So here's
I
the thing
mean, I mean,
also too. Good.
go ahead, go ahead. I was gonna say like the first time the pre-order came out, it sold out, right? It sold out, but we don't even know if people are gonna get their games, that the console. But I think
My
my
mouse
thing
not
is
working.
it's just well, this is my final verdict. I will say like if you have a Nintendo Switch OLED, there's no need for you to go and upgrade and get the Switch 2 unless that's the only console that you play. Then you can switch. You can kind of I don't even know. Can you do trade-ins for your Nintendo Switch too?
Yeah, I'm sure you can do. Yeah,
Nothing
for
that's
Yeah,
going to be worth it.
yeah. I
yeah,
mean, it's
yeah. That's
probably
true.
fifty
You ain't gonna
dollars
get you ain't gonna
towards the
get
Switch
shit
too.
for it.
Yeah,
Like the hardcore will want to get a Switch too.
hmm
yeah.
Like Steve and like me, there's things, but like I got all the other Nintendo systems too that were just
hmm
bung shot failures. Like that didn't do well because I'm a Nintendo fan. Like I'm gonna
hmm
get it. So the pricing doesn't matter to me. But thinking about like the success of the system and stuff, like it's not gonna really matter to me. I played. Well, I had the Wii U. Right, and I enjoyed it, and I love the Smash 4 and stuff was on it. I had the great time. Switch 2 would be the same thing, but I'm just thinking before I thought about it as a Switch 2, I was like,
hmm
oh, this is gang, like they're gonna knock it out of the park. It's gonna be just as, but now I'm starting to really think about it, and I'm thinking like it's not gonna be to me what the Switch was. It's not gonna be,
hmm
it's better in every way, but
I
we've
mean,
learned, except for like for Nintendo, that doesn't work. It works for Sony. It works. Well, Xbox debatable, but it works for Sony. I don't know if to me Nintendo. I
but
don't think Nintendo.
so now because now we're pretty much in a different market, right? I'm sure we can all agree. Right now, the only competitors on the market right now is between PlayStation and Nintendo, right? And I think right now Nintendo, maybe has a stronger group right now, in terms of video games because games like a lot of free to play games that can be played anywhere.
Hmm.
Fortnite and everything, Roblox or whatever. This is a lot of free games, so they have another advantage there. So it's no longer
But
you
why
know,
buy a Switch 2 if you can play all that stuff on your Switch?
that's true. You can play some stuff on your Switch.
You
But I
can
think
play all that
eventually
free shit, all the
at
free
some point,
stuff.
but at some
You
point,
don't have to buy a new one.
at some point there's going to be a fidelity issue, right? Because it's going to get
No,
the graphics
it's not
are
big
going to
enough to matter. That's the thing. It's you're for you, but for kids and older
So
people that don't. That's not
I
going to
think
matter as long as
graphics don't matter.
when they say you can't play Fortnite or whatever on the Switch,
Mhm.
then they would say like, "Oh my god, I need a Switch too." But
that's not
they'll
gonna
never
happen
do
because
that.
they're
But
not gonna do that.
I have a question though. So even though because when they did the presentation and everything, so that now you can have to purchase Nintendo Direct like to get access online, whatever. Are they making it competitive where you can play with other players from other area? Like for example, let's say Super Smash comes out, the new Super Smash comes out.
Mhm.
I mean, it would be great if you can play other people from different states,
Yeah,
right?
you
If
can.
you join
You can do, yeah,
online.
that's
Because you can do that. You can do that now with the Switch. So they're
Oh,
just carrying the Nintendo Online over to
oh,
that. So you'll be
okay.
able to do all
I
that.
mean, you can do all that. Then okay. I mean, if the only
But
way
that's
I can,
nothing new.
okay. I didn't know
Oh
they
no,
were
yeah, no,
yeah.
Nintendo Online. They've
you can do that. I mean,
other
it's
than
not the
adding
most
voice
robust
chat now.
online, but it's still like usable. Like especially if you have friend codes or you have friends on your
Even the
system.
voice chat, you can talk to other people online.
On Switch 2.
It
So
might be
You
just
can
be
in the Switch, but it's very stupid to
it
do
might
it.
be
You
just
need
be
an
with
app
friends
on your
only.
phone.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure it's friends only, right? If for the Switch,
It's you
I would
add an
imagine
app,
so.
you talk through your phone, it's garbage.
That's from
But
the Switch One. That's the first
oh,
time
Switch
we.
2, yeah. What I know
I
the C
mean,
button is for chat, right? Or whatever.
yeah.
That's
I mean,
the
we'll
new
see.
sweet.
I mean, we'll see how Mario Kart plays out. I mean, the graphic looks good as an
It'll be
open
great.
world.
Yeah, it's
It'll
gonna
be
be a good
great.
game. So
It'll be
I
We've
great.
think
had great games
another
too.
point of contention. I think the one thing I think that's too expensive is game prices. I think the console is fairly priced. I think the games are a bit expensive. I understand why, because again, development time, but I feel like Nintendo's taken a bold step in introducing, I don't want to say introducing, but normalizing
Well, here's the thing.
dollar games.
Here's the thing. Nintendo, I'll say this, I'll give them credit. Whenever they fuck up with pricing, they adjust it. So we'll see.
Yeah.
If it flops, if games don't sell the way and they're not making sale, they will cut the price of games.
Mhm.
They just know that since, like you said,
but will they? Because remember, it's a different
yes,
regime. That's what Iwata
no,
did,
no,
right? When
did,
Iwata
no,
was there, he did that through the 3DS.
right. But the new regime has been very comfortable in their because of what precedence has been set. And obviously, this new regime is also the ones that haven't cut any of these prices now for these games because you can
Yeah.
still get Mario. You still got to pay $60 for Mario Odyssey, which is fucking insane.
Yeah.
But the new regime understands that people will buy the quality of Nintendo and
Yeah,
yada
it's
yada.
quality. Yeah, you want to make sure that
But
quality.
that's because the damn Switch has been so successful. If the Switch 2, let's say it's not crazy to say the Switch 2 is not going to sell as well as the Switch. That's not a crazy thing to say. So let's say that. Then you add in the games being $80, which is a very contentious thing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Once the sales
I agree that.
once the sales stop hitting, those investors are going to be angry. They're going to be, this is not working. They're going to have to say they can't. If it's not working, them releasing more $80 games is not going to work. They're going to have to do what Nintendo's done before, which I'm not saying it wasn't. This guy's not Iwata and stuff, but they're going to look back and say, oh, maybe we need to cut the prices of something. I don't know if it's the system, because if it doesn't sell and it fails, they're going to have to cut. And before they're gonna have to develop something new, but until then, they're gonna have to cut back because they're just gonna be pissing money away with $80 games. Like, I mean, the best example is the 3DS. When that shit launched, it became a successful system, but when it launched, they had to cut and give everybody a whole bunch of games to say, when they cut the price, what happened? Oh, sales shot up.
Yeah,
You know
I think I think
that
we all predicted
$80?
back in the day that the 3DS was overpriced. Like even when the price first came out for the 3DS, I said this is overpriced even before it came out.
Think about what you're saying. Think about what you're saying. It's overpriced, but what was it? It was a more powerful DS.
Yes, but at the time, it didn't have the hardware or any games to support it. I remember
what games did the Switch 2?
Listen, I think Mario Kart World alone is gonna just help it cope.
Yeah, but like
it's good for you.
But it's the same.
It's like if they came up with a Smash Brothers game for it, and
they will.
They will eventually, right? But let's say they came up with that launch. That game says that's Nintendo Switch is already set for life. You know what I mean?
I
mean,
just feel like it's
not
but
always guaranteed. For example, the Wii U had Smash Brothers, but also too it
it
had
didn't matter. Yeah,
divided between what do you call it? Divided between
had
the
Mario game.
DS.
It had you know, it didn't have new Zelda games, but it had Mario. It had a lot of. It
Technically,
had
definitely
Mario
was
Kart
the
8.
new.
I'm not saying it was a launch game, but
Mhm.
it did have that, and Mario Kart 8 was phenomenal. That
Yeah.
like to me, it's like that price thing is a real fucking thing. $80.
Yeah,
I don't.
I
I'm
think
not
it's
saying it's not, but I
yeah.
also feel like, you know, it still will sell well.
It's gonna. Well, of course,
And
we
it'll sell
know who's
over.
gonna buy it.
Yeah, the hardcore. But also too, I feel like eventually it'll just. I think Nintendo's just setting the standards, or they're normalizing these prices, right? Again, $80. I'm sure Nintendo never.
Well, we can't
I would
sit
never.
there. We can't sit there and normalize these prices because this is the thing. We're the consumers, right? I mean,
Mhm.
unfortunately, people gonna entertain those prices, and,
Some.
yeah, and it's annoying. But my thing is, this is like I get it. Like chips are getting more expensive now. I see
It's just
Nvidia is participating on helping Nintendo, become better as far as the system, all
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. But this your bread and butter is like this is a family game, right? A family, right? When you're talking about family, you're not thinking about people that live in a mansion and everything. You're talking about these little kids that going to school, the middle class family, like that. Like, how they gonna? I mean, that's crazy. Like
So
to
and
what if Nintendo's transition to where
th-
Sony's PlayStation is? You know how Sony's PlayStation, the
but they're
PS5.
not.
but
They're
I
not.
well,
know they're
let's
not,
say they are.
I know they're not Sony, but what if they're
Let's
looking to what do you call it? Shift over to that space, right? Maybe
let's
they're like, you know what? This space is open because right now it's only PlayStation. Let's become that premium gaming system.
okay,
Let's
but
take over.
at the end of the day, what's the issue with that? Their name is Nintendo.
Hmm.
And the thing about that is that's what didn't work for them before. Because Nintendo is still going to be classified with Super Mario being its mascot.
Hmm.
That's not going to get Joe PlayStation to come over to Nintendo, who he doesn't want to play Mario's Odyssey Adventure, or whatever, because he has his PlayStation already. You know what I'm saying? It's not
Hmm.
so that I like a lot of people that bought the Switch aren't these people that are gonna go
Yep.
for that. They're not. They're not the same. Like they got you already. They got
Yeah.
me. They know us. They know we're gonna buy whatever the fuck they're gonna sell. They don't need to convince us. They can make a Switch 3 and I'll still be all for it. It could be $600 and I'll still probably want one because they'll have Metroid Prime 5. They know how to feed us. The investors know but they're missing that Nintendo thing. And that's why I say this is not like because using your logic, Steve,
Hmm.
Switch 2 takes off and does pretty well. Let's say it doesn't do as great, but it still does really great.
Hmm.
What's the next console going to be?
That's
Is it going to be Switch 3?
That's a conversation for another time. We have to wait about 7, 8, 9,
But I'm
even
saying,
10
but think
years.
about the logic.
That's up to
You're
Nintendo.
saying if the Switch 2 still has a great fan base,
Mhm.
they can't do nothing to upset them because
It depends.
they can't go wacky. They can't go left or right.
It really depends. You can never make the call, right? Because we don't know. What
If
can
they
happen.
fuck this shit up and it doesn't sell well, watch what the next console will be. It's gonna be something off the wall using the same technology, and it's gonna sell like crazy. Watch, because they're gonna
We'll
sell it for
see.
$300, and people are gonna be like, "Oh, I'm getting that because it's cheap."
You think GTA 6 can make it on that console?
GTA 6 is a whole nother thing. It can sell that for
I
$100.
would
It's
love
gonna
to.
sell. It's gonna sell 10 billion copies because it's Grand
Maybe a
Theft
mini
Auto
game. They might
6.
sell a mini game from
hundred
GTA.
Yeah.
dollars.
It's gonna be really
Grand Theft
bad.
Auto is gonna
Like,
cost
it'll be-
$100.
Yeah,
I'm
Grand
saying
Theft
that
Auto,
now. It's
yeah.
gonna cost
Yeah, yeah.
$100.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, yes.
Once I saw the Switch 2 prices, I knew for sure GTA was going to cost. GTA 6 was gonna
GTA don't even care about the Switch 2. GTA knows they can sell the game for $100 because it's Grand Theft Auto 6, and people gonna buy it. They don't. That game
Listen, they got me. I
is
bought
gonna break everything. It's gonna break
I
the
bought
internet.
GTA 5 for 360 right at launch, and then I bought it again for the PS4 or
They
PS5
sold that game
because I was like,
across three
it's just easier to play.
console. They sold it for 3 console lifetime, and
That's
it's
a
still
12-year-old
selling.
game.
It's
People are
12-year-old
still
game.
buying it, and people are still playing it.
Yeah.
GTA 6 is gonna make so much money.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You don't even want to release a movie around that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
You don't want to release a game around that void because everybody,
Mhm.
$100.
Yeah, GTA is gonna be
Come
juggernaut.
on,
That's
man.
it's a whole conversation into itself.
That's a whole nother thing.
But
So how much? I know Mario Kart's gonna be $80. So what
Mhm.
about Donkey Kong? How
I think
much?
it's 70.
70. Man, this
Yeah,
is the thing, man.
it's either 70 or 80.
and I
Yo,
think
least-
game prices might be a little bit cheaper depending on the fidelity of the game.
At least I could upgrade my Zelda game for $10.
Mhm. So I
That's how
feel
much
like
that-
all these revenue streams to upgrade games, I feel like Nintendo is putting themselves in a pretty comfortable position to, is it expensive?
They're on top.
Yes.
They can do whatever they want. It's like Sony being with the PS2.
And I feel like
they do whatever they want.
They're doing it in a smart way. They're not doing it in a
I don't know.
they're not doing it in the same way as like the PS2 to PS3, where Sony was just obnoxiously like, what's that word I want to use? Sony was obnoxiously in their ass, when they did the PS3.
Their heads were
PS3
up their
because-
ass.
Yeah, pretty much because they were just selling it for a crazy amount of price, right? Kind of place PS3. Let's go there. They said they thought they can sell the PS3 for $600 because the PS2 sold so well. They're like, anyone will buy this because we're so popular. And then what happened? It didn't sell as well. It sold decent, but it didn't sell as well as the Xbox 360. And then, the game developers just focused on making 360 games their base and then porting it to the PS3 later on. And then later on, Sony had to do a whole revamp of their campaign and their branding for the PS3, even, doing a different, making a cheaper console to make, moving backwards compatibility just so they can compete. And eventually, I think they did catch up. I don't know if they did. I don't think they ever beat the 360.
No, they did.
They did, right? Later
Yep.
on, they beat the
They sold more in the end.
eventually, but it took a while. They had to do a whole campaign. Remember Kevin Butler, that whole thing, which worked in Sony's favor, but they had to work hard at that. And I'm sure that wasn't easy. I don't think that's.
And what did they learn?
They learned not to do.
They're
that.
going to learn the same lesson Nintendo's about to learn.
I feel like the
PS4, they said, "Oh, let's do it for 400." Oh, they won. That's price is such a thing.
So I believe that, but here's the difference, right? There's a lot of technology within the Nintendo Switch, right?
There's a lot of technology with everything. There's more technology in the PS4 than the PS3, but they stole it for less.
Yeah, they did. They did.
Mhm.
I remember.
You can't say. I get what you're saying. Like you're getting what you paid for. It's got to do more, so it has to cost more. I get your logic.
Not only that, but I also think too, the time period between 2017 and 2025 is much different, right?
I think you are highly underestimating something being more expensive. I think you're looking at it from a point of view of saying it does more and that's why it needs to cost more.
I'm looking at the time we're in too, like the economy and everything. Like things are a little bit more expensive than before.
The economy is also very rough.
Yeah,
you have to take that into consideration too. So not only are they charging more in a rougher economy around the world, right? But you add on more of that, and Dito said too, we're talking about just the price of the system. When you add in a game and a controller, how much is a controller? $80?
Yeah, I mean probably $90, $80 now.
Oh my god! So what are we really talking about here?
Console price, I think is decent, but I think games again. That's going to be
but that's part of it.
I think both is too high.
You add in you're playing a Switch. Like if he says one thing, he keeps saying family. So let's say you got 2 or 3. You need 2 or 3 controllers. That's 160 right there. On top of your 4. Let's say you got the Mario Kart edition.
Wait, that's 500. You just turn the consoles around. You got the 2 controllers in your hand.
That's true.
Good.
That's true. That's true.
You get 2 free.
That's true. Yeah. But let's say they got 3 kids, so you need a 3rd controller, right? You buy a Switch. Either you buy another double controller or you buy a pro controller. Whatever, $80, $90.
Buy a 3rd-party controller.
So let's say we're already at $580. We're already at $580 before taxes. All right. Let's add in a game. You can't play. You're not going to play Mario Kart all day. You got to play something else.
Yeah.
Let's add in another game. Let's add in Donkey Kong.
There's people who buy NBA 2K and that's all they play for the whole
year. But they're not the Switch. They're not Switch. They're not the main Switch people. Main Switch people are not playing NBA 2K on Switch. Okay, I'm sorry. They're playing it on PlayStation or Xbox.
They're going to be playing Mario Kart the whole time.
No, they're not. Okay.
But you see Mario Kart.
So you're saying they're only going to get one game for the?
Hey, it could look at people that have Smash Brothers for the whole year.
No.
Oh,
They
no,
have other
right
games.
now they don't. Even though Smash
Nobody
Brothers-
has a Switch that just has Smash Brother.
No, that's
No.
not true. Yeah,
Sorry.
I don't know about
I'm
that.
sorry.
I think I
you
think
gotta
I'm
have
sorry.
Zelda.
No.
You gotta have
nah, I don't
Zelda.
know
You
about
gotta
that. I
have.
think some
You're
people
gonna get it. You're gonna okay. Let's say okay, whatever. They don't.
Mhm.
You still gotta buy online play, alright. Or if your online carries over, okay, whatever. We're still talking what 500, 550. Then let's say they buy the one controller. You're saying they're never gonna buy another game, or they're not buying another game right
They
off the
could
bat.
buy another game, but more than likely they're gonna
We're
have.
talking,
they're
but
gonna play Mario Kart World for a long time.
How much is
okay,
that?
but like,
Rick, a
and
month?
the way
but
Nintendo
I will
is-
say,
Go ahead.
I still feel like let's be reasonable and say that most people will want to buy 2 games. Will want to at least have 2 games.
Okay.
I think that's reasonable to say.
Yeah, I think they will because they're gonna have.
So
Donkey
let's say
Kong.
they get
that looks good. So
the
that's
2
what they-
games is Donkey Kong and Mario. We'll say like if they buy the Mario Kart game one, it's 500. That comes with Mario Kart, right? 500. We're throwing Donkey Kong $70 right there before taxes. Let's throw in a controller. Let's just throw in a controller.
Okay, even though you have 2 controllers that you can use with the
Okay,
dock,
because there's only
you can
2
buy another
kids. There's
controller.
only 2 people that want to play Mario Kart, which you can play with 4 players.
Okay, and then you can also,
Or Jimmy and his friend comes along, and we don't have controllers for them.
Yeah.
So whatever.
Mhm.
I guess
And
the old
also,
Switch
too,
controllers work.
don't forget, the Switch 2 is compatible with Switch
the
1
old-
peripherals.
Okay.
So
So
you
let's
can use
say,
those as well, right? So you don't have to buy.
but then it almost goes back to Edito's point. Like, why are we getting this new one? Anyway?
Yeah, why are you getting this?
because it's gonna be a
when you have-
transition. At some point, you're gonna transition. Everyone's gonna
What
transition.
transition?
to
Like if I was a dad, I would literally be like, "What's wrong with Mario Kart 8? Why I gotta pay $700
because you can't free roam. You're gonna play with 24 people. You can play with 24 people, right? You can have free
$700.
roaming. You can hang out with your friends. You can take.
Why do
pictures.
I gotta pay
Listen? It's all about keeping with the Joneses.
$650
Everybody wants the latest
for
thing.
you to play Mario? Nah, but if I'm
Remember, I
buying
told
my
you-
game for Jimmy, my boy Jimmy want the new thing, I would have to heavily really look at it.
But
Like
sometimes you gotta tell your kids no because
this is what I'm talking. Like if it was 400,
But they're gonna
all
nag
the
you
shit,
because they're
I
gonna
would be
say,
a little
I want
bit
the
more.
latest and greatest.
We're talking
Everyone has the
closer-
latest and greatest.
but we're
want
talking
that.
closer to $1,000, Steve.
Mhm.
Not closer to 400, 300, 400. We're reaching $1,000 for him to play one game.
Mhm.
And then every other game is 80, 70 or 80. You know, after taxes, we're talking close to 100.
Yeah.
This is and this is the people the sales that Nintendo needs is not the sales from us who work a job and who will get our paycheck and donate it to them. We're talking the guy that has to feed the family. You're gonna be a family man soon, probably.
Yeah. Mhm.
And you're gonna have to, I mean, you're
And I'm
gamer,
getting
so
all my-
maybe
I'm
it
getting
won't
all
be
my
such a
kids
thing.
Switch too. I'm saying it right now. They can hold me to it. Each of you kids are gonna get
Listen.
Switch 2. Mark my
Both of
words.
your kids, so you already
I'm gonna get one for everybody. Every
you
different
already
color,
talking
every variation.
$1,500.
You guys are gonna get. Yeah.
You're already
I'm saying
$1,500
for
a
it
hole.
right now. I got a fun for it right now. My Switch 2 fun for my kids.
You see, yeah.
Oh my God.
Wait a minute, I know you, Steve. Hell no, you a cheap motherfucker.
No. First, I'm gonna weed them first. I'm gonna have them play the NES.
Yeah.
They're
Then you
make
gonna-
their way
yeah.
up. When they get a little,
They go
older,
and how long? That's gonna take like 20 years. And you ain't gonna buy them shit. Until and that's genius. I was like, they can't get to the next system for every 5 years. So they're gonna start on with Nintendo. By the time don't even give them a cell phone because they'll be way too
no
advanced.
cell phones until
They ain't
over
going.
18.
Then you just jump them a console every 5. You won't have to buy them shit ever. By the time they're 20, they get their own money. They can buy whatever
I'll get you
PlayStation
Switch
7.
2. You know, when they turn 18, this is why I always want to get.
That's genius.
Your Switch 2. All right, and
You give them your own Switch too. I mean,
No, it's a lot. I mean,
we'll see.
my thing is like,
I hope it's a success.
I have a feeling, right? I like, I don't mind calling a spade a spade. Again, when the 3DS came out, we looked at it. I was like, yeah, lovely. It's a nice console. Way too much. 169 was not worth it. You know, once they cut the price and added, there was a couple more games.
It was
out there.
$269.
It was 269. Yeah, thank you.
It wasn't 169 is affordable.
Yeah, no, 269. I'm talking
It
about.
was like
back in
269.
2011, right? 269 back then, right?
It was like 269.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and I'm like, yo, just for the 3D effect, this is crazy. I thought it was insane.
But even to me, as a big fan, I saw Street Fighter 4, a PS3 game, running on it with all the content. I said, this is cool. like, wow, look at that.
Mhm.
And I can play it on the go. Holy shit. But yeah, I'm not buying none of,
Mhm.
I don't look, it looks graphically great. It does more,
Mhm.
but that price,
Nah, I don't think. I
it
don't.
seems
Well,
same situation.
But
if you
I
if
don't
you
know. I don't know why Nintendo. I don't know why I feel different about this console. I just feel like with everything
Because
that's set
you're
in
a
place.
Nintendo fan.
you're a
Listen,
Nintendo fan,
I'm a
You're a
yes,
Nintendo
but
fan,
Nintendo
but I'm also
fan.
reasonable too,
You
right?
excited.
no. Listen, Steve. For you, yes, you're gonna get it. But I'm talking about just average family.
Think
Like
of it this, yeah.
it's just not gonna happen. It's
But let
like
me ask you a question, right?
as
So you speak of the average family, right? I know they're kind of different, but iPhones, right? Back they don't sell as much as they did, but now back in the day, they sold like gangbusters. The average person, most people had iPhones because it was the popular one or whatever. I
yeah.
think Nintendo is trying to get to that territory, even though they're still gonna be a family console.
But
They're getting to that point where they're gonna be your main console. That's gonna be the console that you're gonna want to have in your
but
living.
it's too late now because people said like, okay, we say you say iPhone, right? Eventually, people were like, you know what? Why do I need to upgrade to the next iPhone when my iPhone works perfectly fine? You
Mhm.
know. So nowadays, a lot of people are keeping their
I'm in that
iPhone saw
mindset
that.
now.
Yeah, iPhone even
I'm gonna
noticed
ride
that.
this phone till it fucking dies. Like that's I
Apple
don't know.
even noticed that a lot of people kept their phones because
Mhm.
there was no need
There was
to.
diminishing returns.
Yeah. Why would I go spend $1,000 on the phone where I already spent $1,000 on the phone I had before? I was like, no.
But comparatively, iPhone has done it every year for
A
every year
phone
since
is different though.
2027. I mean 2007, right?
I get
This
it,
is this is
but
Nintendo's
I know
second
this.
iteration on the Switch. You
Yeah,
know,
I agree, but my thing is, I'm saying this. I won't get it because I have a Nintendo Switch that just worked perfectly fine. Because I have, well, I'm a collector, right? I have the Steam Deck, the PlayStation
He's a
5.
gamer and he's
Yeah,
telling you
yeah.
Mhm.
why you
I'm
don't
a
even want to
gamer.
get it.
Yeah, I'm a gamer, and I'm telling you, like, what's the point of me like going to spend like that much money? That's a lot.
because
That's a
when you
lot.
see Mario Kart World in person, you're gonna be like, "Damn,
He
that's a
don't
good
give a
game."
fuck.
Listen, I don't
I'm
care.
gonna get that.
I'm gonna watch somebody stream it on
I'm
Twitch,
saying
and I'm
a
gonna
lot of
say,
people,
"Wow,
are gonna say that, and
You're
then once
putting
they
a
see
lot
actual,
into Mario Kart. I'm not. You're
listen."
putting a lot in. Like
I
I
think that's
get
gonna be their
Mario
marquee
Kart
title.
being, but
I,
don't forget it. The Mario Kart 8, which sold like crazy, is not the different than Mario Kart 8 was on the Wii U.
it wasn't, but it still sold like crazy. It still sold
Not
like
on the
crazy.
Wii. I mean, it did, but the reason it's so crazy, like you gotta get the system in the people's hands.
Mhm.
I don't think. I think people bought the Switch not because Mario Kart 8 was gonna be on it.
Yeah,
Like they bought the
Mhm.
Switch.
it was affordable.
It was affordable. You know what I'm saying? Like I really think the price thing. I gotta see how the price thing. It could work. I just don't
I feel
think.
like it's gonna work.
I don't think it's gonna be like. Of
I
course, in
mean,
the
we'll see. In
beginning,
the beginning, yeah, people are
it's
gonna
gonna
be
be
Beginning,
great.
but I
The
feel like
first
after a
year,
while it'll be normalized because by the time
yeah.
that as time goes on,
and
let's say give it to 2026.
and
Mhm.
let's say another thing. Like I was telling you how in the Switch generation, Nintendo did not release a lot of first party games. They will have, but I think it's safe to say with game development way it is, they're not releasing as many new first party games like
Mhm.
normal. That you have to consider that into the whole thing too now, because if they're gonna be so like one thing Nintendo to me you can't really bank on necessarily is like, oh, Switch 2 can run Cyberpunk. Yeah, it's gonna be Cyberpunk's gonna be on the Switch 2.
Mhm.
Like no one's buying Switch 2 for that. You know what I'm saying?
Of course not.
Like
Yeah. Mhm.
you have an option to get it, but that's not so Nintendo does best when it banks on its own Nintendo stuff. And now that this system's gonna be way more
You don't think
expensive,
Cyberpunk has the potential to sell more in the Switch 2 eventually?
no, I
No,
don't think so. I'd be
I
shocked
don't
if
think
it did.
so.
I mean,
I'd be shocked. I even if the Switch 2 sold as much as the Switch, I don't think Cyberpunk people would buy it on the Switch. I just don't.
No.
Mhm.
It's a Nintendo. It's still Nintendo. Like people are
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
buy Mario and stuff that they, because I
When you
just
buy
don't see it.
when you buy a Switch, all I think about is Mario, Zelda.
You got Resident Evil on your Switch, Steve?
No,
Oh, okay. That's
no, I don't.
why.
Uh,
Why would you?
Because I'd rather play on the
You have it
PS5.
somewhere else already.
I think
Even
I
though
think I
even
think
though
the
What?
playing it, you could play it and take it anywhere. Well, could you? I don't know. Is that one of the games you could take anywhere?
I don't know.
I don't
It
know.
probably I think it's a Wi-Fi one, right? It'll probably be it's some
Probably can't
Wi-Fi
take it
game.
anywhere.
But again, at the end of the day, I feel like Nintendo is going to be okay, and I think while it won't sell as much as the Switch, I'm hedging my bets that it'll still be as successful. And again, we're going to see innovation down the line. Once success is rolling and everything's selling, you probably see some innovation, some innovative uses with the Switch, too, and other things.
I think also like from well, that's just me. Nowadays, I rather watch like probably somebody a streamer like play the game and see how it is, right? Before you invest that kind of money into well, especially for Nintendo. Like now you're talking about like Sony and Xbox prices right there. Like
Mhm.
it's man.
And
I mean,
Dito, you brought up a really good point about influencers. I feel like also too, influencers will play a huge role because, again, as the name entail, influencers are going to play the Switch too. They're gonna, if everybody wants the hottest thing, so influencers gonna have it first, and I think
yeah.
that's gonna make other people
What are
want
the
it as well.
influencers saying about it now?
Hmm?
It's too expensive. That's what they're saying.
Yeah,
But a
this
lot of
yeah,
gaming,
this
That's all.
but
That
here's
so.
a lot of games, but a lot of influencers are going to get it, and they're gonna probably review it, and I think that's also going to trickle down as well. So we also live in a influencer culture compared to before as well,
But
where
you're banking. We don't know how the influencers are going to take it. If the
Mhm,
influencers say it's shit,
yeah.
then it's
mhm.
gonna, oh, it's too. They're gonna say save your money, wait till it goes down in price.
So you know
Mario
what?
I
Kart's
doubt they're gonna
great,
say
but it
that.
ain't worth spending six
I
hundred
doubt they're
dollars
gonna
for.
say it.
I'll tell you what. Well, this
Mhm,
is why we were talking about Nintendo Wii, right?
mhm,
The reason it was so popular is because you could play. They had the nunchuck. It was a new way to play video game, and then not only that, with family, right?
mhm.
With family. Um, my thing is the Joy-Con is nothing too exciting. Like the hype was
It was
Nintendo.
exciting,
Yeah,
not anymore.
not
It's
anymore.
standard
It's
now.
like yeah. Like it's standard now. Like I mean, I don't even touch my Joy-Con. I just and use a
Mhm.
controller. I
I can't
mean,
So
even use the
here's the
shits.
thing.
They're
I
too
don't I
small.
don't mind the
it's
Joy-Con because I
small.
feel like Nintendo has refined the Joy-Cons. Now they're a little bit bigger.
Yeah,
They probably
yeah,
have a
true.
different response. I
I
feel like
I'm
agree.
gonna still get carpal
I,
tunnel playing on them
yeah,
shits.
I agree. I agree. I
Come
agree.
on, man.
But I'm excited for. I'm not saying I'm not excited for the console. I'm excited for the console. I'm excited for the games because the graphic looks a little bit better. I mean, Mario Kart is like open world. I mean,
When
that's good.
that's the other thing. It, I bet you, if they wanted to, they could put Mario Kart, whatever, on the first Switch. I don't. That game don't look so much
it
out
has
of.
24 players. It's
Oh
too
my
much to
god!
handle. It needs the power of the
F Zero
Switch
had
2.
30 races on the
It's
GameCube.
two
I don't want to hear
24
that.
racers on a track. You
I
don't
don't want to hear
understand
that.
the momentous power that it needs. That's why they
By
created
the
the
way, I
Switch
was
2.
checking my Switch library and how many Nintendo games I have, and they're all, they're all, except for Puzzle Quest, which I couldn't find that game anywhere else, but they had it on the Switch. So
Mhm.
and the Takeover I got for free. But uh, yeah, come on, man, I'm not
All right.
buying nothing.
To end this podcast, Viva la Switch 2.
Uh,
All right.
like I
There
said, I'm not saying I don't. I would love if it did great. That's great. I'm gonna get one, so
Yeah,
I
yeah,
would
yeah.
love it to do great. I just think, you know, I feel like I'm not gonna lie. I was very persuaded by that video.
Mhm.
I think you should watch it, the whole thing.
I'm gonna watch the whole video.
I think it puts a really good point. Oh, that's a big ass bug on my ceiling. But anyway,
Yo, throw your Switch up there. Don't worry.
I'm
You'll be all
about
right.
to just fling it up there because like a boomerang. Hope it comes back. But I just like I really want to see what's gonna happen with it. I'm more excited to see how this price thing, which at
Gonna
first didn't
settle.
bother me because I realized I'm a gamer. I was gonna buy it regardless.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But now
I'll wait.
I just want to see if other people feel the
I mean,
same.
a lot of people like. Well, this is the thing. Like we consume too much, right? I mean, that's us as
Damn right.
American. We like to consume. We want the new thing. Sometimes we gotta be like, hey, well, for me, I'm like, do I really need to get the Nintendo Switch 2? How about I can, sit back and wait and see how it is.
Maybe I
Even
should be
so,
like that.
yeah, like maybe wait, like because my Nintendo Switch, like, is there's nothing wrong with it. It's still I still can play the games. They still can because they even give you the option to upgrade to a little bit more graphic on your old Switch. So do I do? What am I missing? It's just the console's a little bit bigger, and but for that price also, I don't think it's a good idea.
So
I mean,
so and you brought up a great point. But I think also too, we're all of a certain age where we're not, the coveted demographic as much, right? But
Who's the
someone who's
coveted
like,
demographic?
there's gonna be, of course, kids, but also two
So
people in
who's
their
buying it for
20s,
the kids?
their parents, all right? But I'm also mentioning too that there's also another generation before us, who are going to buy it. A lot of the kids in their 20s and late
They can
20s.
afford it.
my nephew bought
Think
it.
about it.
My nephew bought
I
it.
mean, listen, when I was younger, I was buying, consoles. I mean, I could have bought consoles more, but I feel like there's gonna be a lot of people already
I
buying it for the kids.
remember wanting a PS3 really bad
Hmm.
when it came out, but guess what? I couldn't fucking afford that shit.
Hmm.
I When I got my PS3, it was because Ray sold me his because he didn't
Hmm.
like it for half price. He sold it to me for like $300.
Hmm.
That's the only way I got a PS3.
Hmm.
I even buying a PS4. I'm a gamer, and I remember those being big purchases.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, big
I
purchase.
think you, I think you kind of, I think you really. We're making a lot more money now, where it's not so much.
Hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
I can do it, but even that newer generation, especially the way I know minimum wage is up, but cost of living is up.
Yep.
Things like that. That's all things we
Hmm.
got to consider here.
Yeah, yeah.
So I still think it's a big.
It's a big
This
thing.
shit's more than a
So,
PS4.
Yeah.
worst case scenario, right? Let's say they have these prices in place or whatever. It doesn't sell. Nintendo drops the price, right? What next?
350.
Three
Yeah.
fifty.
Actually, yeah, I agree. That's a
So
perfect
you're
price
telling
right
me
there.
that
350.
Switch 2 is only worth $50 more than a Switch OLED?
You're
Yeah.
telling me that a PS4 is $200 less than the PS3. What's your point?
I just feel like
It's
that that's
not.
that's that's, that's kind
It's
of
like
insane though. If
you're
you
trying
so
to
you talk
say
about an OLED $300 and then a whole graphical, upgrade increase for $50
I'm
more.
throwing. I'll throw the same example. A whole generational leap of PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4 was
Yo,
$200 less and
even
But
sold better.
remember
You can't
too,
tell me it has anything to do with
remember
the
too.
insides because one system is clearly more powerful than the other.
listen, like
Mhm.
when I was going to GameStop to get my like because I start making money, and it was kind of like sad to see kids who were in there trying to purchase games. They didn't have enough money to buy the games, right? They had to trade in stuff to, or you can hear the parents was like, "No, that's too expensive."
You don't even
Mhm.
get shit for trading in anymore like you used
Yeah,
to.
And
like
before you didn't get nothing either.
that was
So
And now you
bad.
won't be able to trade in things because there'd be nothing to trade in.
Mhm.
We can't buy games anymore physical. So
That's true. Everything's digital.
Yeah. So you just like like you can hear parents online, but like when I'm standing online about to pay for my stuff, like they're like, no, we're not getting this. No,
Mhm.
we didn't came in for this. We came in for for the used one. Find another game that's cheaper. You know, like or if they did buy something expensive, it's like, hey, they'll mention like, hey, this is your Christmas, slash birthday, and
Make the
then
and,
most out of it.
you
and I'll tell you something too. You say the Switch OLED, right?
Mhm.
The OLED screen itself is the reason even that should be anywhere near as expensive as it is.
Mhm.
It's still using 2017 Switch stuff. Now
Mhm.
think about the logic, right? The technology in the Switch is almost 10 years old.
Mhm.
So you're the price of whatever they're putting into the Switch 2, which is not even the latest and the greatest. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not you're looking at it, it's an advancement, but it's an advancement of something that's 7 years old. So the advancement in
Mhm.
terms of the price of the stuff that's in it is not what you think it is. The technology and stuff, the chips and stuff in there, you can get on cheap. Like I know they have a custom built thing, but it's not like there's a graphics card. It's still a CPU chip. If
Mhm.
they don't have an OLED screen on it either. So you know what I'm saying? So
I
they're
understand what
really
you're
they're
saying, but I'm
charging
just saying, like
150.
Nintendo just can't price their Switch to $50 more than their Switch OLED.
Imagine if they
I
priced
go
the
ahead.
Switch 2 at $300.
It was so yeah.
That would be
It
would that be great?
it
Yes.
sounds insane, but
but it would break records.
that's the greed of it. You're saying the next generation isn't an excuse for the price to go up. You see what I'm saying? Like just because it's the next it like if obviously like inflation and stuff you consider, but the technology in it
Mhm.
is not as expensive to me as you think it is. If it like this is not
Do I
a
think it's worth
5 year
it?
jump,
No.
it's been 7 years. So portable technology has jumped so far, in that time, it shouldn't actually cost as much as it is. Nintendo and when you talk about the $80 games and stuff, it's Nintendo's pushing that, but like when people look at old stuff and say, "Oh man, then N64 and Chrono Trigger, those things were $80 back at Super Nintendo." The
Mhm.
difference was the cartridge and the stuff that they had to do was the cost. They don't have to even do that. They don't have to put
But here's the
game
thing. But here's
manuals.
the thing, right? So the audience who's buying the Switch, right? Because I remember back in the day, my mom used to buy my some of my N64 games, right? And do you think that she's realizing that when she's buying a $90 game, she was like, "Oh yeah, the manufacturing process is
Your
exactly."
mom is different than most moms. My mom wouldn't buy me a $90 game.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, just this in general, right? They wouldn't know that. They just know that that's the game, that's the price of the game, and okay, that's the price of the game.
Yeah,
I mean,
All the other stuff outside of that,
I
out of
mean, as a
control.
kid, you don't really pay
but a
attention to
kid,
that.
you're a
I
kid.
mean,
I mean,
You
I
ask
pay
and
attention
hope
to
to
it
get
because a
it.
lot of the games
yeah,
I end up being used games. Like the first generation where I bought used games was N64 because compared to what was on the shelves, they were a lot cheaper. So I began,
Cheaper.
but the
yeah,
thing is, that you gotta understand, like the value of this is the problem I'm having, right? Because most people don't think about the value of money, right? Because when you were a kid, you don't really pay attention, like you think your parent got it like that
of
until
course, yeah.
you have to spend the money yourself, and
Mhm.
like, why do I need to get a Nintendo Switch? Like when you really, I'm looking at it right now, I'm like, I don't see nothing
I don't see
new.
nothing for that much more money.
Yeah, for that much
That's why
money.
I'm
Yeah.
saying.
I was like, I'm looking at it right now on my other screen. I'm like, yeah, if I get this, I'll get excited for like about an hour or two, and then that's it.
So
You
what,
know?
I think one of the things I could save Nintendo is if they have strong marketing, right? Because I think we all can agree that one of the many reasons why the Wii U probably didn't sell as well is because it was poor marketing. A lot of people didn't realize that it was its own system. They thought it was an attachment to the
I don't
Wii
think it
U.
mattered.
But
I don't think
yeah,
it
I think
mattered.
that played a big part though. I think
The
that played
hype was
a
the
major
hype
part.
was gone. The hype was gone of
I
like,
think the Wii U is a different
Mhm.
thing, a beast in terms. I
yes.
don't think it mattered if they even
I
hyped
think
it
if
Yeah.
up.
Nintendo can continue that, if they have strong marketing from now until holiday season, I think
I
they're going to
I
do.
think it's the what happened to the Wii U is literally what Antito said. Why do I need this?
Mhm.
Yes. Because
That's literally it.
The message wasn't clear. A lot
Why
of
do I need to
audiences.
switch to? It runs a little better.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
That's
that's
You
the
see what I'm
thing.
saying? It's like the games aren't necessarily gonna push it as much as like I don't think you're like I get new Mario Kart and stuff,
so it's
but
like saying why I need PS5? My PS4 works just as fine.
yeah, but
But that's different. I
but the
mean,
PS5 is a different audience.
it's
Yes.
a different audience,
The
but at the same time too,
PlayStation
I feel like.
is neck bearded. Now I don't want to get people mad, but you know that audience, that loyal Sony and regular like
And
they're
also too,
not the Nintendo
but
people
remember
that
too,
you
a lot of people went to get the PS5 because it was the hot thing, right? Everybody was searching for it. A
Yep.
PS5, this PS5,
and it was
that.
pandemic. It came out during the pandemic.
It
That's
came
another
out
thing.
during the pandemic, and also too, people were also trying to chase that PS5 because they wanted something new, right? Kind of like
Yeah.
the iPhone effect. I want that. It's new. I want that. I'm sure a lot of people don't pay that PS5 as much anymore.
But the iPhone
They
effect
went
is
after it so
It's
much.
not, but if they bought it, that's the thing. If they bought
but
it,
the
it doesn't
iPhone
matter what you do
effect
after you buy.
is it's not the same anymore. There's no
Not
hype
not
about
anymore, but it was at some
yeah.
point, and I feel
It was
like
it was at some point, but it
Mhm.
took a while for people to understand, right? But my thing is like when Nintendo Wii came out, it was super excited. It was all over the news. It broke the internet and everything.
Mhm.
But when the Wii U came out, I didn't even care. I didn't even care
Because
about
again,
it.
I think it goes back to the messaging because a lot of
Yeah,
people didn't understand how to report it. If you weren't video game savvy, for us, we knew what the difference was for the
yeah.
Nintendo for the Wii
What'd
U.
you say?
The,
You're proving my point.
I'm not proving a point.
Yeah,
So
if you're not
I'm not.
video
I'm just
game
saying this is
savvy,
general.
if you're
With
not
the
video
Wii,
game savvy,
if you're not video game savvy, the Wii U was confusing because you didn't know what it was. Switch 2, you can clearly know what it is by its name. Switch 2, the next generation of the Switch. It's not an attachment. It's not a Joy-Con
I
2.
think
It's a new system and it's the next generation. Just like a PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3,
I
PlayStation
think
4.
it,
You know exactly what it is, and
I
people are gonna
think the
figure out.
issue,
Mhm.
which is similar to the Wii U. Now, if it was called the Wii 2, I still think it wouldn't have done great. So I think the issue is you look at that and you just say, for most, if for people that aren't savvy gamers, you look at the Switch and you look at the Switch 2,
Yeah.
like why?
Why?
Why do I have to get that?
Why am I gonna buy it?
Especially if it
I
costs
don't. I don't think
way
so.
more.
No, I think. So. What about
Well,
back in the day when parents used to buy systems for their kids,
Steve,
and
They
then
didn't.
there's one system.
What?
There's
Give me an example.
Nintendo, Super Nintendo. Why do we need Super Nintendo for?
Okay,
Right? It's
I,
the
I
different
didn't get Super
systems.
Nintendo.
but
I didn't get Super Nintendo.
But if someone wanted to get Super Nintendo, they would want it because it's the latest
but the
system.
price wasn't so
But
much. It wasn't
it was
the
yeah,
crazy jump.
it wasn't the
Mhm.
crazy jump because my cousin had like Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega, like they were like living it up. And when I went to visit them in Canada, I'm like
Mhm.
they had every system because they had every Spider-Man toys, like because the price were not the same, when we were a
I'm
kid.
just the price.
But I'm
This
not
is
gonna I'm gonna say this, right? Mario Kart open world looks great, right? Donkey Kong looks great. It looks fine. I don't have a problem with the console. I have a problem with the price. Like you reaching out PlayStation level price when your graphic or not PlayStation graphic and you don't have games that match stories that they're making shows about. Like Last of Us, they're making shows about Last of Us. Death Stranding, they're about to make the Japanese director of that game said they're gonna start making a show about that game. You can't compete with PlayStation like that and come with those prices. But as far as like parents who's thinking about kids who have soccer practice, football practice, karate, and you have a Nintendo Switch at home and you asking me for a Nintendo Switch 2, I'm gonna tell you what's wrong with you. You know what I'm
I
saying?
think
And
Andito is thinking more of
you
how
know what?
most people are gonna look at it.
But you know what? I think that's fair, right? Some parents are gonna look at it and say, "What's the difference between this
Most
Switch 2
parents, I
and
think.
Switch?" Right?
I think
But
most parents.
But you bring up a good point. I think Nintendo is trying to encroach in Sony's territory, right? Look at the look of the Switch 2. It looks very sleek,
And
it's
look at
very dark, and it's very, it looks more like a grown-up console, right? Whereas look at the Switch 2 behind me, right? It's colorful. It looks like a toy. If we
It looks
didn't know
nice
about
to
the
me. I
Switch
love
2,
it. It
I,
fits
I, I
me
love
so
the Switch look, but it
perfectly.
looks kind of like a toy from the background, right? It looks like a toy, which is nothing wrong with that, but it looks like a toy compared to if you look at a Switch 2,
I
which
mean,
looks like
I
an
can't
adult console.
I
And I
can't
think those parents who
it's an
have an issue
adult
buying,
Nintendo console.
right?
well
Exactly. But I think
I'm,
the parents who have an issue buying their kids a Switch 2, they still have the options of getting, the Nintendo Switch or
That's what we're talking
or the
about.
Switch Lite, right?
That's what
But
we're
I
talking
still
about.
feel like the sales are still going to be strong for the Switch 2, and it's not going to be in the same position
Why are they
as
going to be strong?
because it's one of the latest consoles, and people
We
are
already
going
talked about the
because
hardcore. We
because
know that.
gradually there's always going to be that
yeah,
fall off, right? The
listen,
You
Game Boy,
to
the
yeah,
Game
me,
Boy, when the Advance came out, when the Game Boy Advance
you
came out, right? They still a couple of games were still coming out for the Game Boy Color, but eventually it got phased out where it was
how
just
much was a
off the.
Game Boy Advance?
Okay, I know price aside, right?
Right. You to me, you still like the only thing I'm trying to get, at least from you, is something that could you to. It's not your job; it's Nintendo's job. But I'm not convinced that outside of the hardcore, the nerds, and everybody that's watching things, and the people that will go by, I'm not convinced the people that bought the Switch and made it successful are going to buy the Switch too. That's where I'm trying to like. nothing you've said today has necessary like all you're talking exactly the points of what these people don't care about. They don't care that it's a 120 hertz refresh rate screen. They don't know what that means.
But you know what? It's gonna look.
No one knows what that means.
You know, you're right. It's gonna look cool.
Better
They're gonna see
graphics.
the game
How
in
much?
action,
Look,
and
think
they're
about
gonna want
it. Think about the generational difference. When you buy the new Zelda game, when you buy the Zelda upgrade, what's upgraded? It runs at a better frame rate. What? Like this? We're not talking the generational jump between Super Nintendo and N64, or even that to the GameCube. The Switch to the Switch 2, Mario Kart World does not look a whole lot better, or even that much better. Than Mario Kart 8. It doesn't.
I wouldn't say that. I think if we
Steve, look at them like it's newer. I'm just gonna have some, but like the fidelity. Are we really like?
It's a different generation of Mario.
No, but you have to even admit
it's gonna
the generational jumps. Nintendo can't even say
it's very small now. That yes, generational jump. So is small. It still looks better though. It still looks better.
How much better? Like how much better are we really talking, Steve? Like because when you're talking about we're talking a whole generational jump. You're saying they should charge. It gotta cost more. It gotta be $150. Look at what you're really getting out of it. Like you like take the fan goggles off. For a second.
They've been off. I'm just saying.
No, they're not.
My prediction, I'm willing to hedge my bet. Nintendo 2 will be a success. All right. It will sell well, especially during the holiday season. And they'll continue to do that. And, Nintendo's just going to do their thing.
Well, why? My thing is, okay, yeah, I like it. You're very positive and optimistic, right? But my thing is, it doesn't make sense for average people, right? Like I understand hardcore gamers gonna get it, right? But for average people to pay $80 for a Mario Kart because it's open world, like miss me with that shit. Okay, I can't like the thing is like I'm talking as an adult, right? As an adult, like it doesn't make sense for me to spend that kind of money on a Nintendo game where like my Switch is perfectly fine, right? It's perfectly fine. Maybe if the Super Smash comes out, new characters, different moves, get me hyped up and everything. But the thing is, the price doesn't justify for me. Like, there's no reason for me to pay $80-$70 for stuff when rent is super high, car payment are super high. Like, why are we driving?
We bought a lot of recession.
Yeah. Yes. Why are we making those things normal? We are literally like giving those company power where they're like, hey, guess what? This is $70. I don't care how you complain. It's going to stay the same price. $80 for a Mario Kart game is like, I'm not arguing. The game looks great, right? Graphic looks great. More, it does. It looks fun. And, more players, more, racetrack and everything like that. But my thing is like, $80, I'm not spending that. I'm not entertaining that at all. But some people may buy it, right? Great for them.
There are going to be a lot. This is going to sell. It's gonna sell millions and stuff. It's going to sell millions out the back.
2025.
It's going to sell. Yeah, but they could have released shit and it did the same. Because Nintendo fans like you and me are going to go buy that. They got us. I'm just really like thinking like, I don't think you're really considering the price jump. You just think people are going to look at it and say, "Oh, look at the better."
That's the beauty of this podcast because we're gonna have to revisit this conversation once we Switch 2 is released. Maybe come back.
We got to revisit it in like 5 years. We can't really visit.
We can do that. Let's do that.
The first year or whatever.
I remember when we was talking when we were discussing the Switch 1. I know you was cold on it.
I still hate it.
Yeah, I told you. I loved it. I think this is going to be the best console ever. And then
I'll tell you this. Out of all the new Nintendo consoles, I played it the least. I like it. I like what it is. I think the idea is great, but I played my fucking GameCube way more. I don't know. Maybe it was just the time it was out or whatever. But I play everything else but my Switch more.
Maybe if the name was
a Steam Deck
Switch 2, maybe if it was a different type of console and type of Nintendo, it would be exciting.
So I know I joked, let's call it the Super Switch, right? Because I remember when the first consoles, I mean, first podcast we had about the reveal of the Switch 2, I mentioned calling it the Super Switch, right?
It would be crazy if it was Super Nintendo 2 or something
Super
like
Nintendo
that.
Switch.
Yeah, no, Super Nintendo 2. If they brought back like the Super Nintendo, like the name Super
Moniker.
Nintendo, it would make it more exciting because it
See,
would be
even that is more exciting to him than the
yeah,
Switch 2.
it would be exciting because if you look at it, right, Nintendo 64 came out and then GameCube, they changed the name and it was
Mm-hmm.
something different.
It
Yeah,
made sense. They had to change the name. They
yeah,
couldn't,
Look,
it makes sense.
because they were,
I'm
I mean, they were originally going to go with they call it after the Super Nintendo, they're going to originally call it 64 Ultra Nintendo. But I think after a certain point, everyone was just like, okay, let's just call it the
I
X.
mean, I'm probably gonna, like you said, we'll look back 3, 4 years from now. I'll
Mhm.
probably be
Yeah,
like, oh, okay, Steve, you were right. It
yeah, yeah.
sold so well.
Yeah, just like I
Okay,
was right
I'll eat
about the
crow.
Switch in the Switch podcast. Yeah.
I never said anything about the Switch not being successful before.
Hmm.
We had this was different. We weren't talking about it pre-release. We were talking
Yo,
about it after we had it and what we think
Yeah.
about it. And
but
my points still stand. I don't like the small ass thing and the Joy-Con drift. I had to get a new controller and all this other shit. Like my thoughts are still the same about
Hmm.
it. I hate that it's not. It should be more powerful. But
I
I don't want to
mean,
spend 450 on a new
I'm
one.
I'm looking at the comments for IGN that released a video about the Mario Kart, right? Some people felt, some type of way about it. Some people were like, "Yeah, I'm very excited for this," right? But there was people that was like, "Yeah, the game looks great, but I can't justify spending that so much money on a
Hmm.
single game." You know, looks cool, but I'm not spending $80 on
Yeah,
Mario
it's that price.
Kart. Like,
When something costs too much, it is a deterrent. It's not for you because
you
you are the Switch boy.
usually when you spend $80 in a
Which one?
game, it comes with special. What is it? It comes with special
Special
skins,
edition.
special
Yeah, this ain't
skins,
shit. This
everything.
is the base game.
It's a
No,
big
you get special
game.
edition. You get two multicolored
You get
mouses.
nothing,
You
and you're
got a
gonna have to
mouse to
buy
play with.
DLC for it later.
Guys, you can use Internet Explorer with a mouse. Come on. It's revolutionary right there. We're
Like,
good.
man, I don't know. It's $80 games, man.
All
I
right,
don't
guys,
know.
we're gonna
That's what.
wrap it up.
All
But
right, it is getting late.
all
Yeah.
right,
Fuck, I gotta go to work tomorrow.
but we'll see.
Same
Switch 2's
here.
launching this Thursday, June 5th. And we'll see, who was right. But guys, if you loved this video and others on our channel, once again, please like, subscribe, and please give us a thumbs up. Just comment. Let's discuss this. Who's right, me or Andito and Sterl about the price? All right, comment down below. I want to hear from you guys and what your thoughts are on the Switch 2. Andito, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for
Always
having
great
me.
having you. And Sterl, likewise. All right, guys, this is the ABG cast, and we're out.
Deuces.